everyone, and welcome to another episode of Pivot and Prosper. I'm your host, Joe Nahay with LFG Business Group. Today, I have the great joy of introducing Kana LiVolsi from Austin, Texas. Kana is a renowned CMO with over 20 years of experience boosting profits and customer engagement for top-tier companies and celebrities. She's globally recognized for her leadership in business innovation and is focused on using the power of storytelling to transform cultural conversations. I love all of that, and I'm so excited to learn more about you and, the art of storytelling, one of my favorite things. So thank you for joining me here.
Thanks for having me, Joe. I love the intro you gave me.
Excellent, right? Cool. So I know we learned a little bit about before I pressed record. Let's share this with everyone who's watching and listening. Tell me about you. Tell me about your current role, what the problem that your business solves, and ultimately what you've created as the solution.
Sure. So I'm Kana LiVolsi. I have had at this point 3 careers, I would say. I was in film and television, pioneer in the digital publishing industry, and have for the last 9 years, which it still blows my mind, have been running Mundos Creative, where we fuse art and science for helping improve ROI for our clientele at the high level. So, was there more?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. That leads me right into my next one now. Art and science. Okay, let's elaborate on that a little bit more. I love the art of storytelling. I like my favorite phrase, let me paint you a picture, where I just describe something, right? Analogies left and right. Talk to me about art and science and what that means in marketing and helping companies.
Sure. So one of the differences between art and design that they often talk about is that with art, you are building a vision. With design, you're solving a problem. People who are in our industry and do it well solve you both. You find a vision for what we can be and what a company could be, and then you figure out how to get them there, not only for what their company has imagined, but what they may have not imagined yet, in order to help them connect with their consumers in a more meaningful way.
I love it. And there's a lot of, I'm sure we can name tons of companies, right? We work with, and they go, do you really understand your customer and what they're trying to achieve or the problem that they're solving? And they, their mission statement is 5 miles long, but does it really answer? What is that creative component in there? Is it really defining what you're after and what those next steps are? Now
it's hard to harness. Sorry, I'm just going to hop in.
You're good. Please do.
One of the most difficult things is when you're looking at creative firms versus digital marketing studios. Oftentimes, the digital marketing studios are really understand data. They really understand the pathways and the funnels to create with it. Mm-hmm. But the storytelling and the art is lost in the process, so you're not hooking customers in the same way. A lot of times on the creative industry side, they're not looking at the data and they don't have that information in order to build something out that's incredibly effective. But what they are great at is the art of storytelling and figuring out how to create an emotional resonance that doesn't just sell somebody shaving cream. They are selling people on the feeling of not having your hair stick to your body in the middle of the summer, right? They're selling you on your potential, which that's a terrible example. But the importance of bringing that artistic eye is so valuable for the digital marketing industry. And we need each other, right? It's all about the art of collaboration, which is what we're all about.
Yes, I couldn't agree more with everything you just said right there. I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, so I'm an analytical thinker, but I'm a very creative person. So I kind of like to match the two. There's a lot of data that's important, but there's the storytelling, the strategy, the emotion, as you said. It's funny you mentioned that one analogy there. I read one the other day where it said, talking about selling a drill, right? You can say, well, use this to drill a hole. Okay, well, what does a drill do? It drills a hole potentially, right? What does a hole do? A hole can hold an anchor on a wall that holds a frame of your family.
I like that.
What is the feeling? I want to hang a picture of my family. I need a drill. What brand do I trust? Something along those lines. Wow, that's cool how they escalated that to that. I didn't come up with it on a whim. I definitely saw it on social media. But geez, so many companies, they lack that. Where it's, hey, in my funnel building in my agency, going from emotion to logic, right? Having that true emotion, the tingly feeling of, yes, this is for me. This makes sense. I need this. It's not a quick sale. It is a lifetime buy where you have those lifetime customers. It's critical and important. And I agree that it's lacking so much in the industry. When you marry them, as you just said, I mean, I'm complimenting everything you said. It is, wow, what's amazing what happens with conversions.
Oh, absolutely. It's interesting that your background is in mechanical engineering. So everybody on our team, on our creative team, actually originally went to school to study some form of science. I was
Wow.
going into microbiology and cell regeneration. One of our team members was going into neurology, and the other one was going into paleontology. And then we all at one point realized that we had this need and this urge to create and to build a vision, not just study what was there, but to do something with that. And so it's so interesting. I feel like people who come from that mechanical or that scientific method and mindset end up in this space at one point because you find the need to search for like the existential, right? And then we end up doing marketing. So
right. Hey, well, we were given. I feel like we're in a similar boat. Right? We were each given a gift of how we think and how we operate, and to navigate, to execute, to help people in their businesses is the ultimate goal and dream that I try and achieve. And it sounds like the same with you as well too.
Absolutely. Well, and is it okay if I take us off topic a little bit?
Please, let's go all over. I'm all for it.
Perfect. Just because I think it's like you mentioned before this call, marketers, it's a very interesting world right now, and we don't really get to connect that much. But I think that what we do is we build the connections not only within ourselves, but within our society. Like we're the ecosystem builders, right? And one of the interesting studies I read recently talked about how they studied this group of Montessori children. And in kindergarten, when they're still doing a lot of artistic and creative activities, finger painting, I don't know, painting their face, doing knitting, whatever they do in Montessori school, 98% of them tested positive for genius. And then as they went on, and they studied these kids for the life cycle of their schooling years, right? And by the time they went to high school and they were doing very little arts and creativity mixed in with their normal studies, it went down to only 2% at that point tested positive for signs of genius. And it was the 2% that were still involved in the arts in some way. And so I think we all have that potential, but it's ripped away from us at one point.
I agree.
Because we're not practicing it and helping our brains think. And I think that's where we're moving with AI, right? As AI is starting to take care of the things that make our brains go numb, we have the potential to lean into who we could be and thought processes that have been sitting dormant and maybe our own zone of genius, which is exciting to me.
Wow.
I'd be curious your thoughts about that.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. An analogy I use quite often is, well, of course, thinking outside the box, right? But there's 6 sides to a box. So are you just thinking outside of one side of the box, or are you challenging your mind to think out of each side of the box and 2 steps outside that box? Maybe it's a box in a box like Amazon Prime, right? You never know. But to challenge your mind to constantly in corporate life, right? How many times, I've been there many times, I'm sure you too, if you were in corporate as well for years, you sit in a meeting and they go, who has thoughts on this? And someone raises their hand and they say something quickly, it comes to their mind and they go, no, that's great, good thinking, but that won't work because of X. Well, how about this? Think it through. Yeah. Think it through. This step. I mean, that's ultimately strategy, right? It's strategy building and effective and optimized strategy building. And that mindset will help you get there.
Definitely. Well, and the interesting thing my husband and I talk about all the time is the concept of closers versus narrowers versus openers, right? Okay. And basically, openers are people who are constantly looking for new ideas and saying, how can we expand this idea? And narrowers are the people that are constantly saying why something can't happen, or let's move it down this pathway. And I think it's really unhelpful, like in these meetings you're talking about, in these corporate board meetings, where if somebody is narrowing, they're not just saying, no, that's no good. They're thinking about what might be good about it and seeing how they can pull more creativity out of their team. Because discouraging an idea just for existing doesn't help us come up with the cool thing, right? It doesn't come up with the genius thing, with the I don't know, with the vision of where we could go.
Yeah.
And so much of that is squished. So I know.
Whatever happened to, I mean, like the world of, I come back to this one movie in particular that I'm not sure how many kids have watched, or even nowadays, if there are still movies like it, but Willy Wonka and Pure Imagination, just thinking
Yes.
so far outside the box and making that dream become a reality. Like if you can imagine it, many times it may seem far-fetched, but it can happen.
Absolutely. And I think right now we're in this weird space where, and the reality is like our social systems are just, we have broken communication. And one of the powerful things I realized is that stories shape our reality. And so why can't we be having our society focus on the vision of what we could be and helping each other get there, rather than telling each other that what they see isn't real or what they see isn't valuable? It's saying, okay, I see that, but what can we do with that? Where could this go? How can we make this better? There was something recently that I read that it's concerning when all of the people have been focused on saving the world are now focusing on what to do in the worst case scenario.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to really think about that one too.
Yeah.
Interesting. No, it's very true.
Yeah.
So with all these struggles, I mean, we're a lot of adaptation, right? Communication, how people are communicating. People are tied to the phone, Zoom versus in person, the power of a handshake. We could go on and on and on, right? What have you struggled with the most while operating your business and its growth and marketing strategy, connecting with companies over the years?
So, and this is kind of I would say this is almost a more existential thing too, right? But it's one thing that I've struggled with on and off is the value of marketing and how we've traditionally operated, right? Because what we're doing is we're tapping into psychology and we are using data to push people along a path, right? We're essentially master manipulators. But the question is,
Well, you're right. You're right.
but the question to me is, how do we use that in a way that feels like we are pushing in a way that we can stand in integrity, versus in a way where we know we are becoming part of the problem. And there's no way to know if we are becoming part of the problem or not. Like when social media was in its early days, I was very involved in pushing people to that platform because of the opportunity and the potential of the communications that come from it. But now we've gotten to this point where, I mean, they're trying to figure out what laws we need around it. Children can have phones because they're addicted, and our mental health crisis is coming from this vast amount of information, right? And this constant connectivity. And one of the things that I struggle with is whether or not we're doing the right thing, and whether or not the messages we're sharing are hurting people or helping people. Like I've worked with a lot of very high profile health and fitness brands, and a big part of my mission with them was to figure out how we can not make people feel poorly about themselves and not use tactics that take away from their self-esteem, but to help them feel seen, right? To help them feel seen and to give them a lifesaver, right? To give them a raft when they're really struggling and they feel like they can't talk about it. And it's about your mental health, and your health is wealth, right?
Yeah.
It's about not having a bunch of small white women who look like me be the only thing that you're seeing in social media, or in this health and wellness social media, right? And saying that that's what health looks like, because it's not. A lot of times it's incredibly unhealthy.
I couldn't agree more with everything you just said. 100% agreed. And I think that, you said it right there. I mean, the master manipulators, that's a superpower, if you will, right? And how many times over the years, as a first thing I do, looking from the outside in and working with a brand, how does the consumer perceive what they are from a cold outreach, for example, or an ad, whatever that's targeted to them. We've gone in a day and age now where so many people are saying, oh, I'm not doing that. I've fallen for that before, because there was someone who had a great superpower who sold a snake oil product or service. And they're like, I'm not doing that again. But no, we're different. Yeah, I've fallen for that before. They say I've heard that before. All right, how can I think outside the box even far more different than that to really show. I mean, the awareness part, okay, we get that, but the know, like, trust has become far more difficult in the past, 12 months alone. It's very hard. But yeah, true. That's true. Agreed. Yeah, the guarantee results, man, of the ejections I get, that's definitely one. Can you guarantee this? Triple the price. I can guarantee anything. Yeah, I'll keep working until it does happen. We'll figure something out. But at the end of the day, it's providing value, right? There's not. I think we're definitely on the same page, paragraph in line with this one here. When we get new clients in, it's not a matter of. I don't look at it anymore as another invoice paid or a dollar sign or anything like that. I look at it as another person and company that I'm helping grow and scale. And it doesn't matter how long it takes to do that and achieve that with a partnership together. Another word you said too, not caring. I care. Sounds like you care. We care. And it's like, okay, we need to blow away all the other gurus who don't care and try to make a quick buck by some 4-minute YouTube video they saw on how to start a SaaS and make 10K a month tomorrow, right? and differentiate yourselves.
The thing is that we are marketers that care. Despite being master manipulators, our goal is actually to help people see the good in each other and provide products that actually solve something for them. Right? We're trying to build connection across the board.
Yes. Having a ultimate goal is if I have a giant field of raving fans that are happy with the service I provided, yes, that is the goal. Not who was that guy that I worked with? I forget. No. It's working with Joe or working with you has been fantastic, and I can't wait to tell the whole world about it, right?
Absolutely.
That's the goal. Technology. We talked about AI. Talked about a couple different things here. Other than AI, or maybe even AI, if you want to touch on that a little bit, as far as reshaping how we connect with our audience compared to 5 years ago, and even if we could take a little off grid from that tech side, even the lack of use of guerrilla marketing used nowadays today, I think I'd love using guerrilla marketing in multiple different assets or ways or methods or whatever it may be. So talk to me about how you think tech is how we reach our audience.
I love that question. Now. So I think that we will get back to a form of guerrilla marketing. I think we're already there with experiences, right? And one of the things that we're really specialized in is creating this, what we call brand CX ecosystems. So we're looking at every touch point you have with your consumer. And the touch points that have the most impact these days are typically an in-person thing. Right? It's about how you follow up. It's about how you build it into an entire ecosystem that makes it effective. Because how many times have you been to a conference, since we're both in Texas, like South by Southwest, where you, like, Slack had their, their lounge in the middle of the JW Marriott Hotel. And it's like, okay, great, but I already use Slack. You spent a lot of money and I'm not going to upgrade my services. I'm just going to use what I need. Right.
Yep.
And so people are looking at how we can create more intentional connection. We can figure out a way to be more involved in consumers' lives from a brand perspective by actually solving problems for them. And a lot of times those problems can be in the form of we need escapism, right? So one of the things so climate and technology to me are so interconnected. And a friend of mine who's a head of sustainability for a global corporation a few years ago talked to me about how AI was actually less sustainable and TikTok was less sustainable than any other platform because of the amount of strain it puts on the grid. And so we're being forced indoors, right? Over time, we're going to continue to be forced indoors, whether it's hurricanes, whether it's extreme heat, whether it's extreme cold. So things like malls are destined to come back, right? There's no way that they they just have to look different because we're looking for places to be. I can't tell you how many times my grandma, who's 95 years old and one of my favorite people on the planet, she's sharper and I'll use the word sassier than anybody I know, and she's funny. But she can't leave her home that often in the summer because places are too hot, right? There's very few places that she can walk without stumbling. And so places like a mall are a great place to take her where she can walk around. And the mall here kind of sucks, I'll be honest. It's the same stores you saw years ago. We've got the Bath and Body Works and Nordstrom, California Pizza Kitchen. It's like, I don't want to go hang out in a barely, like, there are almost no windows, feeling like a warehouse space that's trying to sell me, like, I don't know, this ghost town of my childhood. Right. And by revamping those experiences, whether it's through the amazing technologies that we see now with AR and VR, like I was in talked to a studio in LA that had built these LED screens that went up to the ceiling that had the same experience as the Sphere. So their CEO sat me down and stood in front of this big LED wall. And he told me to put on glasses that looked pretty much like these on top of my regular glasses. And suddenly all of the different particles that were behind him were swirling around him in a way that looked realistic. Right. And then he asked me to move around him in the room to see how the perspective changed. And at one point he was completely hidden by those particles because they've created such advanced technology at this point and imagery. And I feel like that is where guerrilla marketing especially can thrive, where you can create exciting unexpected experiences in events where you can bring people together. Yeah. They pulled up a image of a football field where it felt like I was standing in the end zone. And I did some photography for pro sports a long time ago. And I could feel my heart rate lift. It felt like I was looking up the sky and I could almost smell the grass. It was really interesting. And you could take companies where you pump in grass smells. You could do all sorts of things to make this feel like you're somewhere. And it's going to become more and more important as we try and fix the problems that we have outside. Right. And it's something we absolutely have to do. I don't want to say we're going to have to live in the oasis, but I hope we never get to that point, but we will have a couple of tough years ahead of us while we try and figure out this energy crisis and while we try and help with climate change. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. So, all those components, I totally agree. And it's a good challenge for us. Again, going back to thinking outside the box, right? The whole AR, VR stuff, it goes to the emotion of someone saying, wow, this is cool. Or even something where it's how does stuff get popular and get user generated content when people go, I need to share this. This is an Instagrammable moment, blah, blah, blah. Boom, tag us here. Oh, the value of that, creating something so cool. I mean, restaurants do a great job at this, right? Of creating, but they have to keep up with it. But yeah, you're right. Malls, as you were talking about, I'm thinking of the Drury Mall and going through and people trying to sell me ridiculous stuff that came over for $2 from overseas, right? For 20 times the price and blah, blah, blah. Or the sticky things that stick on the wall. Oh gosh, I can go on and on about it. Or the scent from Hollister that just stayed around for a whole block, right? Yeah, all those things. But it's amazing to see you're right, with climate and tech and all the above, right? How can we be another step? How can we be ahead of the curve or even ahead of the second curve where it's where other people are thinking where you thought another step ahead, and it's really keeping people engaged, not for short term, but for
absolutely a
long term, which is
and we can't just keep relying on building small. Or we can't rely on building viral marketing campaigns at the same way, right? Everybody's got different needs. Everybody's got different interests at this point, and they want them to be met. Mm-hmm. The consumer is much more demanding, is much smarter than they used to be, or much savvier than they used to be to the manipulation, rather than saying that they were ever wrong. Exactly.
They picked up on the BS.
They know it.
Yep, they know. Yep. They can stick it out.
And so why, I could see a world where, and creators are burned out. No, everybody doesn't want to be a creator. And most of us are not good at it. I think most people come off very inauthentic on the camera because they know, they don't want to be there. They're doing it because they feel like they have to. They feel like they're a trained monkey standing in front of their iPhone, just saying, please hire me. Please see my value. And I think what people really do love is collaborating. And so as we move into a space where we need better mental health, where we need to be reaching more people at a time, there may be at some point branded communities, right? That bring people together so that they can create something, where they can create art, whether it's through content, whether it's through building out the experiences. But activating the community is going to be so much more a part of marketer's job, I believe, in the future.
Yeah, Big fan of the
Absolutely.
community side of things, between coaching, courses, community, all outside of generic education through, K through 12 stuff. That's the more you can learn, the more opportunities are to learn, the more people you can connect with that also want to learn and can provide you those resources. I can only imagine what kind of superpowers folks can have with how they think in
Absolutely.
the future, right? Having at their
Absolutely.
fingertips. Another question
Sure.
here. This might be one of my favorite ones. What's one piece of outdated advice that entrepreneurs should stop following
Ooh.
immediately?
I have two. One, I think you'll get
Well, please.
immediately
Yeah.
is if you build it, they will come, which is total horseshit. I don't know if I can guess on it. It's
Yeah, it
total
is.
horseshit at this point. I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs come to us saying, look, we just are finishing our product and we just need to make you look, we need you to make it look pretty so that we can sell it to the world. Because if we build it, they will love it. I know people need this. I know people love this. But the reality is, at this point, almost any product can be duped pretty quickly. And so what you actually need to build is that emotional connection and that loyalty with your customer. You have to build a trust. And that's the thing that you should be focusing on building from a community level, from a advocates level, from a partners level, far before your product launches. Obviously, make sure that you have a viable product, make sure that you have a business plan. But if you don't take that step, it's going to be very hard to suddenly go viral. And the ones that do already have some sort of audience, already have some sort of have a trust, right? So celebrity brands, if they do it intentionally, can blow up very quickly. Same thing with household name brands. If you do it right, you can blow up a lot more quickly. But for anybody who is just like starting or putting out a new product or switching gears, it is much more tricky to make something where people latch onto it unless you are intentionally building the storytelling around it, building out your funnels, building your ecosystem, right? The combination of the work that you and I do, right? You need that, not to pitch this, but it's like people need that in order to succeed in this day and age. Otherwise, you're lighting money on fire. Lighting it on.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And investors are unhappy. So we don't even take on projects that have that mentality. And then the other one is always stay ahead of your competition. The reality is if somebody is competing with you and like going neck and neck, you probably want to work with them, right? Like imagine how much more you could do if you work with the person who is your competition. And you're probably very like-minded. You probably like a lot of the same things, a lot of the same interests. So why wouldn't you partner with a company like that or acquire them, right? You'd work faster. You'd have a lot of the systems that maybe you weren't thinking about. Nobody thinks the exact same way. So if they're a competitor that competes on integrity, you want to work with them. You don't want to stay ahead of them. You want to work with them. So I think those are two top pieces of advice that I would say are outdated.
I love it. Very much agreed on both those there. This again reminds me of another phrase I use: money hates confusion, right? So if you have competition out there and you're like, well, let me just add this, and this, maybe I need another offer. Maybe I need to You're confusing people. You're confusing. Yeah. Eliminate that confusion. Make it simplistic. Maybe it's merging, working with that. Who knows what it is, right? But keeping your brand authenticity, hitting its core values, right? And driving it with emotion. I love using another analogy of Nike, for example, right? Is Nike selling a shoe or is Nike selling a feeling, an emotion? Without question, they're selling an emotion, right? And if you said Hilton Hotels is coming out with a shoe, what does it look like?
Exactly.
I have no idea. If Nike comes out with a hotel, I have a really strong idea of what that whole hotel is going to look like, feel like, smell like, what they're going to be wearing. Absolutely. I can envision it to the T almost because of the emotion that drives through their branding.
So if Hilton comes out with a shoe, they better partner with Nike.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Moral of the story, right? And we talked a little about emerging trends and stuff in the future. Is there anything else that you think would redefine the industry in the next 10 years outside of what we already talked about?
I mean, I think that so one of the conversations that's coming up a lot, and I even just saw an article earlier today, is our DEI initiatives. And I'm going to say I think they should be, because it should be part of your holistic practice. It should already be part of how you operate. Mm-hmm. You should be looking for people who think differently, who come from different backgrounds. You're going to improve the profitability of your company if you are talking to a wider audience who has different needs. and the people who are helping create those strategies also come from a different background, you are going to be creating a super team. You're going to be creating a super product. So I think that is bound to come back in a massive way. We actually have a whole report all around that. And how much money is being left on the table by companies who are just treating any sort of diversity and inclusion as a checkbox. So I think it's just going.
You said it right. Yes, leaving money on the table, and if they're only hiring people that are just a mere image of themselves, you're only going to go down one pathway. It's never going to change.
So I think that's one thing that's going to be shifting tremendously. And I mean, again, it's just like how we communicate with our customers is going to continue to change. There is definitely going to be a lot more personalization. Right now, everybody's trying to personalize, but it seems like many are doing so in a way that when you dig into it at all, it feels a little bit like an MLM strategy. So there's all of these, there are a lot of communities, there are a lot of personal coaching and different apps and everything, but the ones that are going to succeed are the ones that are actually using like the scientific method and have some sort of product behind it that provides real value, isn't just trying to stand on bullshit, right?
Sure.
So,
no, I agree.
How about you? What do you see?
So good question. I think we talked about a good bit of them there. I think guerrilla marketing is the big one that's going to become more and more valuable, and that thinking outside the box. One thing I did when I was in corporate that I love doing was these trade shows, right? There, how many tens of thousands of dollars to do this, and then to have dinners and to host people and do that, blah, blah, blah. But you have to pay to get all of that. But what is right outside of that barrier of payment inside the convention center? A Starbucks that everyone goes to. Okay, think outside the box. How can we use something to advertise there? How can we I saw someone else do it recently too, went viral. But like, what did we have? We had like a hat with a QR code said "scan to get a free." I forget what it was at the time. Something, right? Like, now you got people like running after trying to catch the QR code. It's the more the eyes are on you. Yeah, it was for pizza. The recent one I saw, someone did something similar. And it's like, how are people going to remember you, right? You go to a trade show, like how was a trade show? I mean, there was some dude running around all about the Starbucks doing this. He had a blue hat. What company was he with? Oh,
absolutely.
That's what you remember, not some silly thing. These companies that do these booths and whatnot, where it's like, is that really driving me in for attention, or is it just the same cookie cutter stuff that everyone else is doing? Use a completely different cookie cutter mold. Use your own, and make it unique each and every time. And that I think it's going to be incredibly challenging in a good way. That I look forward to the challenge of how to go through that top of funnel conversion process.
Absolutely. And that's where the art comes back in, right? It's that visionary.
Correct.
It's that person who thinks outside the box that's trying to bring something into reality that doesn't necessarily have the full idea of where it's going to go, but they know how to make a splash, and they know how to make a statement, and they know how to say something. And then the teams and AI can fill in to help make it something that is lasting and creates velocity for your brands. But having moments of artistic inspiration and spontaneity and just something interesting is going to bring people back in.
Yeah. I think the biggest one recently for me is LinkedIn DMs, right?
Yeah.
We all get it. And it worked a while ago, but even with AI icebreakers that are put in place, but how many times are you added in somewhere, your message, "Hi, I came across your profile. It looks like you have blah, 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 blah."
Yeah.
No one calls me Joseph. So that's immediately when I know it's BS, right? It's like, guys, there's so many copy paste templates that are used out there. Like I could sniff through all of them. We could all sniff through all of them, right? I know come on. So what is that unique barrier you can do to connect with someone and show authenticity, so that's not that default copy paste, whatever. I love that challenge. That cold email or cold DM aspect. So we'll see what changes next.
We're going to have to rewire our brains to figure out how to authentically connect with people again. And that's exciting.
Yes, I agree. Challenging in a good way. Coming to my final question here, on top of all the education we've been talking about here and things I've learned and enjoyed talking with you about, this is probably one of the best ones here. So you're given the opportunity to mentor a young entrepreneur. Maybe it's even you 20 years ago, right? You can only give them one piece of advice. maybe two. We got time for two if need be. What would that piece of wisdom be?
It's okay to change who you are. It's okay to change your perspective. It's okay to change your life path. Change is good. Change is progress, right? I think it's okay to let go of things and let go of ideologies that you had in the past. And if you don't, it's problematic, right? Like if I had grown up to be the person I wanted to be, I would be a dinosaur right now, right? So that was what I decided at 3, that I was gonna be a dinosaur. While it would be cool, it's maybe not practical and also not what I want to do, right?
Sure.
But I think that, like, especially when you're young, you don't know exactly who you want to be. And the people that do and grow quickly sometimes feel stuck in that path because they're like, okay, I found my life's purpose. I got success when I shouldn't have. Maybe I need to stay here. But it's okay not to, because it's time for your next chapter. And I think that's something we as a society can learn kind of across the board. Did you know that our cells every 7 years completely turn over in our body? And so, right? It's wild. So it's crazy to think that we even have the audacity to believe that we could still be the same person in 20 years that we are now.
Makes sense. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Change is good. Change is good. And this what comes to my mind too is, how do we define success? Some people go, well, I found something and now I'm making X amount of dollars in this and I'm in, I hit the check boxes that my folks wanted me to do, yada, yada. But are you really happy doing the things you want to do? I mean, maybe someone wants to be a pianist, or maybe someone wants to be in sales, not in engineering. Odd, but you never know, right? It could be all over the place, right? And when that true passion, we're on the same page, paragraph, sentence with this too. I wake up and it's not work. I love, without question, what I do. Absolutely. I have a true passion for it. And when that's found, I've hit success. It's not a monetary thing at that point. I'm loving every day I wake up.
If you love the people you work with, you love what you do. You're in a good spot. And it's okay if it stops to be the thing you love, right? It's important to experiment and find, like, if this person wanted to go from being an engineer to being in sales, they should, like, at least dabble in it. See if something resonates. Realize that there's something missing. Like, when we feel unsatisfied, it's a recognition that something needs to shift. It may be a small shift, it may be a huge shift, but it's worth exploring.
I agree. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time and speaking with me here today. I'm excited to get all the feedback from everyone watching and listening, and any comments that may come. I'd be happy to post your LinkedIn info below for people that want to follow you on LinkedIn, and also your company website as well, too, people that want to learn more about you. This has been an absolute joy and a pleasure. I truly
Likewise, Joe. This has been wonderful. Thanks for the great conversation and the invite.
Awesome. All right. I appreciate it. All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.